I left off in the first session when we had got to Guru Prasad in 1960, and we were going to go there for Baba's darshan on Sundays for a couple of hours. And instead, when we first saw Baba, he said, come every day. So that's where we left off. Before I continue, I noticed in my notes here that I forgot to mention a small little incident, or not an incident, but small little episode where I met Baba for minutes, literally, in 1958. It was rather unusual. 1958 was the Savas that Baba had for the men and women. And when the circular came out, it said only children, or only, if you're only 17 and above, you could attend. I was 10. So I was quite disappointed that I couldn't go, and I think one thing led to another, and I'm sure with a little encouragement from my parents, I wrote a letter to Baba saying, I would like to come to the Savas, and can you please make an exception? In those days we were silly, we didn't keep copies of the letters we wrote to Baba. We have the original response, but not the letter I wrote. So anyway, we got a letter from Baba in response to that. And of course, it was written by Erach. And in the letter, Baba says, how happy he was to receive my letter. Baba loves all children, including you, so on and so forth. And then he says, and I quote, "You must not feel sad if you are not allowed to be with your mommy and daddy for the Mirabad Savas." So even as a 10-year-old kid, I realized that was a no. So that was the end of that. So then we went to Bombay for the Savas. We initially always go through Bombay. So whenever we traveled, now we gave Baba itinerary. He knew where we were staying, the phone number, etc. We were staying in Bombay for a few days. And Dad was then going to go off to Mirabad to help. He was a volunteer. And Mom and I were going to Panchgani. And then Mom would join later when the Savas started. And one day in the morning, phone rang, Dad answered, and it was one of the Mandi. He said, "Adi, Baba wants to meet Merwan. Is it possible? Is it possible?" Dad said, "Of course it's possible," thinking that he's going to call me the next day. He said, "When?" He said, 10 o'clock. It was already 8 in the morning. So we scrambled quickly, had breakfast, dressed and everything. Baba was staying at Arnavaz and Nariman's house, Ashiana. So we get there in time, and Bhau is waiting at the bottom of the steps. He says, come on, Baba's waiting for you. And their house was on the first floor, and the steps were from outside. So Bhau says, come on, Baba's waiting for you. He turns and walks up the step, and we follow. And Bhau suddenly turns and points to my parents. He said, no, not you two. Baba just wants to see Merwan. You two wait here. So they waited. And I went up with Bhau. And we went in, and Baba was sitting in Nariman and Arnavaz's living room, in the living room of the house, in his shorts and with his hair open. It's the only time I've seen him with his hair open like that. And he asked me the usual things, how are you, this, that, even as a small child and everything. And then I really don't remember what else Baba asked me, but he made me sit there for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops, and then he said, now, okay, you can go. And that was it. Now with hindsight and reflecting on it, I don't know whether that was as a result of the letter I wrote to him or not. Only he knows that. But that was a small little thing that I missed. So Guru Prasad. So now Baba said, come every day. So we started going from the next day in the mornings. Mom and I would stay from 8 in the morning to 12 in the afternoon. And this went on for about a week. And then I started to get bored. I'm a 13-year-old kid. I was very active. I wouldn't sit in the house, read books. I was always out playing cricket, marbles, flying kites, running around with friends, all this sort of stuff. So I was getting bored sitting there, and all this conversation with adults going on, So I said, I'm getting bored. Send me to Panchgani. You might ask, why Panchgani? In Panchgani is still famous even today for its boarding schools. And one of the boarding schools there at that time, called Bilimoria High School, was owned by Mom's first cousins, two brothers who were the principals and the owners. And they'd left me there for the 50th Savas, and before that we'd also visited. And I had a great time, ball school, they had playing grounds, tuck shop, table land, which is what Panchgani is named after. 5 Ganis is the 5 hills, the 5 table lands like they have in Cape Town, flat. One of them was just in the backyard of the school. There was a path from the school going up. So we would have lots of fun. So I wanted to go to Panchgani. So I must have pestered them quite a bit. So they wrote a letter. But since they'd now written a letter, they had to tell Baba. So one day they say, Baba, Merwan wants to go to Panchgani. So Baba said, why? So they had to tell him, Baba, he says he's bored over here. Baba said, bored? Like this with a, sort of very quizzical expression. So yes, Baba, he says he's getting bored sitting here in the mornings. So Baba thinks, he says, okay, from tomorrow, let him come in the afternoons with Adi also. I thought, oh boy, now in the afternoons also I got to sit around like this. But I was so wrong. The afternoons were completely different to the mornings. In the mornings, there would be 15, 20, 30 people. Sometimes the whole Mandli Hall would be full, so much so that the Mandli's bedding, which was on the side, the youngsters like me would sit on top of the bedding to make room for everybody. So there were a few people. And then, they would talk about this and that, and somebody might ask Baba something, and that sort of conversation would go on virtually all morning. Afternoons were very different. Afternoons, when Baba came at 2 o'clock, Irach would first bring the correspondence, and he would sit and read the correspondence to Baba. And Baba would ask him to respond. Irach was so good at the correspondence that 90% of the times he would read the letter and say, Baba, I'm going to tell them this, this and this, and Baba would say yes. Very rarely would Baba say, Baba would dictate, this is the message to give them. And that, depending on how many letters there were, would take 15 minutes, half an hour. Then Baba would say, anything else? Nothing. So Baba would say, this is what? Cards, right? Baba would say, let's play cards. So the first day I'm there, Baba says, do you know how to play this game? Laris? I said, no, Baba, I've never heard of it. I don't know. For those of you who know cards, it's a game based on trumps. It's a very simple game. I said, no, Baba, I've never heard of it. I used to love playing cards as a kid, and I was good at it too. So, but I said, no, I haven't heard about this. So he said, okay, you do this. You sit and watch. And we'll see after 2 or 3 days whether you think you can play it or not. So I said, okay. So then he said, but don't just sit there and do nothing. He said, I told him I was getting bored, right? Or my parents told me. So he said, don't just sit there and do nothing. He says, when the game ends, the players chuck their cards on the floor, you pick it up and you shuffle, and then you deal to everybody. So I did that. Of course, when you deal, the first, you give Baba the cards first, and then everybody else. So I watched for a couple of days. And then Baba asked me after a couple of days, he says, now can you play? I said, yes, Baba, I think I can play. So he said, okay, then join us. So I joined them. Now, some of you probably know how Baba played the card game, but would you like to know more about it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we sat in a circle around Baba, right? Baba, 2 people next to him, and a circle. And every alternate person from Baba was on his team, and the other people were the opposition. And if you wanted to call the trumps, you would say, I want to go Laris. And if Baba wanted to go Laris, he would go like this. This is the L, right? So when Baba put his hand up like that, of course, everybody deferred to him. And then the game would commence. Massive cheating in the game. You couldn't believe it. Oh! Baba's asking the fellow whether, have you got this, which is the joker, The joker was the top, even above the ace. Baba would ask somebody in his team, Baba would have the ace, so he would ask somebody, you have the joker like this. Everybody would show each other their cards and massive cheating along the way. But it was great fun. And then sometimes Baba would say, today no cheating. So we would say, okay, Baba. So we'd be playing and all of a sudden somebody would look, Baba, you're cheating. Baba, look at you, you're cheating. You're showing your cards to everybody. So Baba said, yes. I said, no cheating. That was for you, not for me. So he says, I can still cheat. Oh, okay, Baba. So that goes. And then rarely Baba would say, today no cheating. Even I won't cheat. And we'll play seriously. But you know, the most fun was when you cheated like crazy. And Baba had a good time. That was the whole point of it, for him to, you know, enjoy it and to lessen his burden, whatever fraction it did. So that's how we played cards. And so that was something we did in the afternoon. The other thing we did in the afternoon was, in those days, Baba had asked his close Pune lovers that if you want, I will come and visit your house for tea, 3 o'clock in the afternoons. So of course, who's going to miss an opportunity like that? Many of them would invite him. So once or twice a week, I can't remember how many times, once or twice a week, Baba would go to close lover's house for tea. Now, if there were 10, 15 people in the afternoon, oh, I forgot to tell you, in the afternoon also there would be only like 10, 12 people, not many, nowhere near as many in the morning. So it would be quite intimate, just a few people. So if there were 10 or 12 people and there were only 2 cars, somebody had to stay behind. But then the next time, the people who stayed behind, Baba would make sure they would come with him. So like that he rotated. Of course there was Erach and Mirji and a few like that who went to every trip. But the others he rotated. So we would go to these house visits. Now Baba's coming to tea. You're going to have the most lavish tea that you can ever think of, right? Whether it's sweet, sour, savory, tea, everything was there. And Baba would tell us boys, there was me and the twins and occasionally Merwan Missy, would tell us that you can dig into it. Dig into it and eat properly, you know, like this, meaning to your fill. And we would. But of course, we knew we were part of Baba's party, so we did it kind of, you know, nicely, respectfully, no sort of pushing, shoving, or, hey, that's the last one, I want it, like that, nothing like that. We did it, we were very well behaved, let's put it that way. I don't remember too many of the house visit, the details, but there's one I did remember, which is Madhusudan's house. You know the singer, Madhusudan, I mentioned in the morning. Baba would keep asking Madhusudan, you know, all these people are inviting me to come to my house, or come to their house for tea, and you're so close to me, you haven't asked. So Madhusudan would put his head down. Baba said, you know, how many times I've asked you, and you say, Baba, my house is so small. You and your party won't be able to fit in even, Baba, it's so small. And this would go on. And eventually Baba got fed up. So one day he turns to Madhusudan and says, you know, since you're not inviting me to tea, I will invite myself to tea at your house. And on such and such a day, we will come for tea. Of course, Madhusudan wasn't going to say no. So we went to his house. He lived somewhere in the city. And the conditions of a house visit were that you only invited your very close, your immediate family, of course, your very close relatives and your very close friends. Not no one else, because otherwise there would be too many people. So you're not supposed to tell anybody other than these people. But somehow this time the word had gotten out that Baba was coming. So when we started approaching Madhusudan's place, which is in the city, small congested streets, there were crowds of people standing. And when Baba came out of the car, there was this, huge surge towards him. So we had to hold hands to protect him, to get him into the house. And Baba had told us that because the house is small, I only want half of you to come in with me. And when they have their tea, they'll come out and then the other half can go in. So that's how it was at Madhusudan's place. Then Oh yes, the other thing. Between 12 and 2, if we were in Guru Prasad, Baba wasn't there because Baba would go to the ladies' side at 12 o'clock and he would stay with them, have lunch with them and stay with them till 2 and then come back. So us young guys, the twins, myself, Merwan Mistry in 1960, we would potter around, do some stuff. Obviously we were making some noise. So one day Baba comes and says to us, you youngsters, you're making too much noise. Pendu can't sleep. It's disturbing his sleep. Pendu would rest between 12 and 2 because Pendu, after the accident and this and that, Pendu was not his old self and he needed the rest. So we said, sorry Baba, we didn't realize we were making that much noise. We'll try and keep it down. Okay. So we thought we'd reduced it and we'd be making less noise. But 3-4 days later, Baba comes and says, Pendu still can't sleep. You fellows are still making too much noise. So he said, from today, if you are in Guru Prasad between 12 and 2, keep silence. So we couldn't speak from then, between those 2 hours of 12 and 2. Then Baba says that I hear somebody's playing the harmonium. He says, who's playing the harmonium? So I said, Baba, I am. So he says, what are you doing? So I was learning the piano in those days. I mean, I hated learning the piano, but I was. And I thought that, let me see if I can play one of Baba's artis on the harmonium, just 2 fingers. And I'd picked Baba's old arti, Meher Raj, not the Bujave now, the old arti that Rustam, Adi Senior's brother, had written, the first Gujarati arti. So I was practicing that, and that was the noise. So I told Baba, that's it. So he said, can you play it? I said, yes, Baba, just with 2 fingers though. He said, this meaning, let me hear it. So I said, okay. So I pulled up the harmonium and played it, and Baba said, he didn't do that because it wasn't that. He said, but then he says, this gives me an idea. We'll play a joke on the ladies. He said, we'll tell them that 3 famous kawals, you know what kawals are, who sing kawalis. It's like bhajans, but kawalis. 3 famous kawalis want to perform in front of Baba, and they are coming on such and such a day in the afternoon to perform. And we'll tell the ladies that. Now, who are the 3 kawalis? The twins and myself. So he calls Dr. Gaver. From the ladies' side, the two women who would come to the men's side regularly would be Gaver and Rano. So he rings, there was a bell in there. So he rang the bell, Dr. Gaver came. So he says, tell Meera and the ladies that on such and such a day, 3 famous kawals are going to come to perform here in front of me. They've been wanting to perform for a long time. So they should be here before 3 o'clock on that day. So Gaver says yes and goes away. But we 3 guys are stuck. We don't know one word, not one verse of Qawwali or anything like that. Luckily, Adi Senior was there, Adi K. Irani was there. Adi was a good singer in his time, very well accomplished. He used to sing a lot for Baba. So we latched onto him and said, Adi Kaka, boy, teach us at least a verse or 2 of a Qawwali because we have to do this. So he did. He taught us a couple of words. He gave us 2 verses. He gave us the tune, the melody, everything. So we would practice that. And meanwhile, every day, Baba would call Dr. Gaver and say, remind them, 3 o'clock on such and such a day, they should be here. And Gaver would get fed up. And Baba, I've told them already. Baba said, no, tell them again. Like that. He would do that regularly. So the day comes. And we had been told that we should wrap some cloth around our heads like a sort of a makeshift turban. And see the attention Baba gives to detail. Baba sitting here, the door leading to the women Mandali's quarters through the main hall is here. That door has slats. So they adjust the slats that way so that the women can see in, but nobody can see Meera. So that's where they would come and sit behind the door. And the door for the main entrance of the hall where everybody came in and out was about there, where Baba's bust is. So Baba said, when you come in the door, don't look at me. He says, because they'll see you and immediately they'll recognize you. So he says, put your head like this and come in the door. So we said, okay. So 5 minutes, 10 minutes before 3, Baba looks there and says like this, are you there? They can see him, right? And they get a response saying, yes, Baba, we're here. All the ladies, other ladies there, in other words, are you ready? So then 3 o'clock or so-ish, Aloba comes running into her room. This is all, of course, put up, right? And says, Baba, those kawals are here now. They're here. So Baba says, come on, why are you waiting? Bring them in. So Aloba says, come on now, go in. The 3 of us are out in the veranda. So we have this makeshift turban stuck on our head. And we go in the hall and we come through that door with hands bowed like this, but looking like this, so that the women can't see our face. And we sit down, we pull up the harmonium, and you know, before you sing any Indian song, you have to warm up. You have to and warm up, and you know, warm up your throat. And so we started all that, and then we said, okay, we're ready now. Then we sang our 2 verses, totally out of tune and all mucked up. And we repeated it so that it wasn't just 2 lines, it was at least 4 lines. And then we said, and then we stopped. So Baba looks and says, finished? I said, yes, Baba, finished. So he said, then he looks at the women and he says, did you, was that good? Of course. So the next day, Mani, when she comes to the men's side, Mani says, we were really taken by Baba because Baba said kawals are coming, so we took him at his word. But there were a few hints here and there which we didn't pick up on. She said, normally Baba would tell us who the kawals are, where they come from, all this sort of. This time Baba only said 3 kawals and he didn't say anything more. And she said that Mira was so annoyed. When you came in with your head like that, she said, look at those silly people, they're not even looking at Baba. Baba was sitting there, right? She said, look at them, they're not even looking away from Baba. Mira was most annoyed, little knowing what was going on. So Baba had a good chuckle, and I think all the others did too. Now, we had only gone for 3 or 4 weeks because, now we were going every day. So we didn't know whether an opportunity like this is going to come up again or not. So we decided to stay longer. I had school holidays, so it didn't matter to me. And Dad, Dad had his own business. I mean, he was a partner in it, but he could take time off more if he wanted. So we were able to do it. So we stayed longer. But after 3 or 4 weeks, Dad's money started to run short to pay for the hotel. We were staying in a hotel. And Dad wasn't well off in those days. So we were looking for alternate places to live with friends and this and that. And Minu Kharas, his brother, lived in Pune, his elder brother. But he was a bit of an eccentric fellow. His wife was very nice. So Mom and Dad were talking to them whether they could come and stay with them. His wife was really happy for us to come and stay, but his brother was still unsure. So Baba would constantly ask, what's happening? His name was Edel. What's happening with Edel? Is he going to let you stay with him or not? And Mom and Dad, Baba, we don't know. His wife wants us to come and stay with him, but stay with them. But Edel's not sure, so it's still like this. Now this would go on 2 and 3 days back and forth. Finally, Dad said, Baba, if nothing happens in the next 2 or 3 days, we have to leave because my money's going to finish. So Baba said, okay, do this. If Edel says no, then you, Adi, you come and stay here with the Mandli, sleep in Mandli Hall. And he said, Roda and Merwan can go stay in Bindra house with them. But then Edel said yes, and we all went and stayed there with him. So now we were staying longer. Dad, as I said, Dad was short of money, so short that he couldn't afford 2 rickshaws to take us to Guru Prasad and back. In those days, the rickshaws wouldn't let you pile 3 and 4 and 5 like they do today. The 3 of us, even though I was a kid, we had to take 2 rickshaws. And Dad couldn't afford that too. So the cheapest way of transport we found was a bicycle. You could rent it for 2 rupees, 3 rupees for the day or something like that in those days, very cheap. So we would cycle to Guru Prasad. We would cycle back for lunch, and then Dad and I would go in the afternoons. One day in the afternoons when we were going back after lunch, these people, we were now living in a congested area of Pune, which is behind Babajan's Dargah. If you've been to Pune and you know where Babajan's Dargah is, it's in the area behind, which is a very congested area. Coming through a small side street, when all of a sudden this car comes through, horn blaring at quite high speed for such a small area. And everybody was scattering in front of the vehicle. And Dad and I were on the bicycle. Dad moved off to the left, and I veered to the right. Of course, in India, we drive on the left side of the road, right? So I moved off to the wrong side of the road. And the car must have missed me by inches. Because there was this big, I knew it was a close miss. I didn't realize it was that close. So we stopped over there. As is typical in India, when something like this happens, a crowd gathers and, And I distinctly remember one old man saying, "Jao, jao, go, Bhagwan ne bachaya. God has saved you." Of course, Dad gave me some choice words as well, because he wasn't pleased that I had gone on the wrong side of the road. He says, "So and so, you're going on the wrong side of the road, you almost got killed, this, that." Anyway, we get to Guru Prasad. In Guru Prasad, if you've seen the picture, there's the big main entrance. But if you were with Baba in the Mandli Hall, which is on the side, there were 2 side entrances, on the men's side and the ladies' side. So we would always go by the side entrance. Went there, parked our bikes, walked up the stairs, took our shoes off, put our foot in Mandli Hall, and Baba immediately turned to my dad and says, "How does Merwan ride his bicycle?" Okay, finished. Dad gave him "Oh, Baba, he drives like crazy, he doesn't listen to us, he just almost got killed just now in this big accident." So Baba does he like he doesn't know, says, "What happened?" So Dad told him. So Baba looks at me now, he's quite serious, not angry, but very serious. He says, "What do you think? I have nothing to do but keep my nazar on you?" So I'm just looking down, I didn't say anything. So he says, "From today," this was Baba's sign for cycling. "From today, your cycling is stop." This was also Baba's sign for stop. It's a sign for corking a bottle, but Baba used it for many things. And in this context, he says, "Your bicycling has stopped." I said, "Okay, Baba." He sat down. While we're sitting there, the thought comes to me, I have the bicycle here, how am I going to return it if I can't ride it? So 3 o'clock was tea time, Aloba's famous tea. So even though Baba was in Mandli Hall, when tea was ready, Baba would say, "Now go and have your tea." And you couldn't say, "No, Baba, I'm not going to have tea, I want to sit here." If you were a tea drinker, Baba insisted you go and have your tea. So we would all rush off, drink our tea as fast as we can. Of course, Aloba's tea was piping hot. So we pour it in the saucer, blow on it as hard as we can to cool it down, gulp it down and go back. While that was going on, I mentioned to Dad that how do we return the bike? And we asked Irach also. So Irach said, "We'll ask Baba when we go in." So when we go back in, Irach says, "Baba, Adi is asking, or Merwan is asking, that he has the bicycle here, how does he return it if he can't ride it?" So Baba says, "Is that so?" "Yes." "Okay. You can ride and take it back. But remember," he says, "from tomorrow, it's stopped." I said, "Okay, Baba." That was the end of it. Then, when Baba went to the ladies' side at 4:30 or whenever, we all came out. And then there were a few people in the afternoon. They said, "Adi, they're telling my dad this, Adi, for the last week, Baba has been asking everybody in the room, do you know how Merwan rides his bicycle? Is he rash? Does he drive safely? Every single person in the room has been asking for the last week. And he said, all of us said, we don't know Baba because we never see him. The only person who could answer was Aloba, because Aloba used to do gate duty. He would stand on the gate. And we would come 7:45 around that time. I would come riding fast, put on my brakes, screech to a halt and stuff like that. I love bicycling. I never got a chance to do it in Karachi, so I was, I guess, showboating, if you want to use that word a little bit, in Pune when I had the bike. Actually, Aloba had warned me once before, a couple of weeks back. He said, some of the ladies noticed you were riding fast. He said, they said, tell Merwan that if Baba finds out, he won't like it. But I guess being a 13-year-old, it went here and didn't sink in. It must have gone out the other side. I didn't pay attention to it. So they said, that's what Baba's been, every single day for the last week, he's been asking us, how does Merwan ride his bike? I suppose that's how he keeps his nazar on you. There's a sequel to it. So, now in 1962 I go to university. This is 1960, right? 1962 I go to university. The most efficient and best mode of transport for a student getting to university is bicycle. Because we had rickshaws and we had buses, but the rickshaws were so far infrequent, sometimes you could walk for half an hour and not find one. And the buses, forget the buses, they were just jam solid and, totally unreliable. We had taxis, of course, too, but that was too expensive. So bicycle. So I said, Dad, I'm getting fed up walking for 15 and 20 minutes and half an hour before I get a rickshaw to go to college. Get me a bicycle. So Dad said, no. Baba said, you can't ride a bicycle. When Baba said you can't ride a bicycle, by the way, in Guru Prasad, I asked him, being 13 years old, I had the audacity to ask Baba. Of course, I would never have done it in later years, but at that time I did. I said, Baba, do you mean here? Or even in Karachi? He said, no, here, in India. He actually said that. So I asked Dad, give me a bicycle. Dad said, no. Baba said, no, I'm not giving you a bike. But I said, Dad, Baba said, only in India. He said, in Karachi too. He said, no. Baba said, no bike. I'm not giving you a bike until we check with him again. So for the next few months, I used whatever public transport that was available. But in 1963, again in May, we were going back to Guru Prasad. This was again going to be a nice 6-7 week visit with him. So in 1963, when we go back, Dad first asked Irach. He says, Irach, you remember that bicycling incident of Merwan? He said, yes, I remember. He said, Merwan wants the bicycle in Karachi, what do you think? We should give it to him? So even Irach wasn't sure. Irach said, I don't know, Adi, we'll ask Baba. So at an opportune moment, Irach brings this up. So Baba said he needs a bicycle. Yes, Baba. So he says, why? Aren't there auto rickshaws, buses, other modes of transportation? Why does he have to have a bicycle? He gave us the real 9th degree on this. But finally, we answered all his questions. So Baba said, okay, over there, he can bicycle. But over here in India, this is Irach translating Baba's words, in India, stop. So that order still stands today. I mean, I can ride a bike anywhere in the world except India. And to keep me busy also, even in the morning when there were, I shouldn't say crowds, but more people there, Baba said, okay, you want to do something, you don't want to sit around. So in the morning, the twins would clean Baba's bedroom floor. In India, they put a damp cloth on the floor to pick up all the dust every day. So he said, you go with them and you clean my floor. So I was quite happy doing that because I really wanted something to do. So in the morning, the three of us would go, and then we would go into Baba's bedroom and clean his floor, and we would split up the room. This is your 1/3, this is my 1/3, this is your 1/3, like that of the room, to make sure we all got equal shares. So that way he kept me occupied. And the thought of going to Panchgani vanished. It didn't even occur to me. After we got home, one day my mom and dad tell me, by the way, we did get a response from my cousins, and they said Merwan is welcome to come to Panchgani anytime he wants, for however long he wants. But they said, you are having such a good time there with Baba, we didn't tell you. Normally I would have got most annoyed, but I just said, that's fine. I was really, Baba had now got me. That was it. So at the end of his stay, Baba left Pune, and he would go to, quite often he would stop at the big mango tree that was in Ban Garden in Pune, where Babajan used to sit, under which Babajan used to sit. So he would give his last glimpse of his Pune lovers of him there, and then he would go to Mirazat. And there would be quite big crowds. You'd actually have to hold hands because Baba would keep half the window open as the car was leaving. Car would leave at walking pace because people could stay abreast of it. And he would leave his hand like this so that people could see it. But some people come and grab it and, do this. And with Baba's hand. So you had to have a little cordon around it to make sure that people wouldn't do that. And then once the guy got a little out, he was gone. Also in 60 and also in 63, we would have lunches, ice cream, fruit handed out by Baba there, because mangoes would come by the crate. And if you went into one of the rooms in Guru Prasad was huge. There would be stacks of cases of mangoes, and Baba would say, what am I going to do with all this? So sometimes he would get 2 or 3 crates out, and whoever was there, Baba would go into the kitchen, sit on a small stool, and hand out the mangoes to everybody to eat. So we would have that. Sometimes some of the pilgrims would say, Baba, today's my son's birthday, or it's my birthday, or such and such a day. I would like to give a lunch to everybody. This is everybody who stays in the afternoon, not the morning crowd, the afternoon crowd. So Baba would say, okay. So in Guru Prasad, in the front veranda, it would be on the floor. You would sit on a little cushion thing like that, which was spread out, and you would eat in thalis, and the women on the women's side, men on the men's side. And there was a bench on the women's side right at the end of the veranda, just like there was a bench on the men's side at the end. And Baba would sit over there and watch, and he would partake just a little taste, basically, to please the host, because Baba didn't eat very much in those days. And then occasionally, the best part of it was occasionally, when food was being served, Baba would come and he would serve us. And he would like to serve rice. You have those flat servers of rice. So Baba would fill that and put it in your thali. It was either thali or a banana leaf. And he'd drop it in your plate, and he would say, Bas Baba, thank you, that's enough. Enough? No, Baba, who's going to be able to eat all this? There's so much rice now. He says, remember, I don't want you to waste 1 grain of rice. So we would eat it till you were absolutely overfull. Now, a lot of times people say, this doesn't make sense. Why would Baba do that? But surprisingly, just a few years back, I was reading something. I don't remember what it was. And in the old days, in the 20s, when Baba was training the Mandli in Mehrabad, he would do the same thing. He would serve them food. At that time, I think he served it daily to them. And he would, if they'd say enough, he would put double helpings, and then he would say, remember, eat every single grain. And the mandli were not trained then, they didn't know his ways, they were new to him. So one day, one of the mandli got really annoyed. Said, Baba, what is this? We keep telling you no, 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 and you keep giving, our stomachs are like this, we can't even move. Baba says, you have no idea what I'm giving you. He says, you think I'm giving you food, but you really don't know what I'm giving you. So keep quiet and remember, don't waste one grain. Now, whether that same thing applied to Guru Prasad or not, I have no idea, but I thought it was very interesting that Baba said that even on that day. So that was 1960, and in 1962 was, of course, the East-West Gathering. Now, again, the circular comes out for the East-West Gathering. It's for 4 days. So we write and say, we'll be able to come. No, and we get a cable from Baba saying that he wants Adi and Roda to come and come early as volunteers. So they respond back and say, but Baba will come, but there's a slight problem with Merwan because his school leaving exam, the final year, which was our senior Cambridge exams in those days, which was run out of London, the O-levels as they call them, starts on the 15th of November, which is pretty close. So the response came back that no, he must come at least for 2 days. Now they didn't tell me that. Mom and Dad didn't tell me that. What they told me was, if you study hard, we'll take you for the program. They didn't tell me that Baba said, no, you must come for 2 days. I never studied hard, to tell you the truth. I would do my homework minimum and then rush out to play, like I said, cricket, marbles, whatever it was with my friends. But that year I did study hard. I studied hard. And of course, I went to the East-West Gathering. But I was getting there on the 31st or 30th night, and I was only there for the 4 days, and immediately the program finished, I was going back, and the next day I was in Karachi. So it was that tight, and I had to, because I had to study for my exams. So while Mom and Dad went off, they were going as volunteers, they went off early, and I was staying at my aunt's place. And my aunt wasn't a Baba lover, so poor thing tells me, after a few days, she says, if you really don't want to go to this, to join your mom and dad for Meher Baba's program, we'll tell them that you're not well, and then you can stay and study. I said, no, don't do that. She thought I was being forced to do this, right? I said, no, don't do that. I want to go. I'm going. So then she realized that I was going willingly and I wasn't being forced to do it. So I got there on the 31st. We stayed in there was a whole group of us from Karachi. We stayed at the Ritz Hotel, I remember that. And I'd taken some books to study because my exams were there, and the program was only, for Easterners, was only in the afternoon. So on the first, Mom and Dad go, and I'm sitting in the hotel with my books open, right, trying to study. Could I study? Not a hope in hell. I was looking at the books, but my mind was in Guru Prasad with Baba. I think I must have gone through 2 or 3 or 4 pages in a whole morning, and even that I'm sure I didn't take anything in. Total distraction with him over there. They come back for lunch after the Mom and Dad, because they were volunteers, they would go in the morning also, because the Westerners were there in the morning and afternoon. They come back in the afternoon and say, Baba said, why didn't you bring Merwan? I said, what? I was supposed to come. So they said, we didn't know. So we told Baba we didn't know that Merwan was supposed to come. So Dad says, I'll go and get him now. So Baba said, no, now, never mind. From tomorrow, bring him in the morning also. So my studying, whatever I had in mind, was all gone. Now look at the way, in every Baba group, I haven't come across one Baba group, there are not internal squabbles and this and that and the other. Soon as the other people in the Karachi group who were living there found out that Baba asked me to come there in the mornings also, Oh, why is Baba asking this little child to come in the morning? What about us? We love him so much. Why isn't he calling us? There was all this friction. But I just ignore it. What else do you do? So I started going from the morning. Now, I was a 15-year-old then, right? Who is going to take a 15-year-old kid on their team as a volunteer? Nobody. So I was a volunteer at large. I got a nice badge which said volunteer. There were two types of volunteers. One who had access only to Guru Prasad's compound. They couldn't put a foot in the house. And the other badge would allow you full access anywhere. So I got the other badge because of course I was going into Guru Prasad. And I was told later that some of the elder volunteers were, again, like the friction in the Karachi group, they were a little annoyed that where's this little kid going in with this badge? He's running all over the place. But that happens with Baba. So I would run errands, and in the afternoon, when the main darshan program was on, I would help with controlling the queue. Now, I told you that Mom and Dad were asked to come as volunteers. What we didn't know is that the Pune Center was organizing this East-West gathering. And Baba had given our 3 names as volunteers to them. Mom, Dad and myself. We didn't know that. I only found out when I got the volunteer badge that I was a volunteer. So the Pune group, they would come to Baba off and on to tell him what the arrangements were, this and that. So when a program like that is there, Baba would have contact with them reasonably frequently. So at one of these sessions, one of the Pune group, they knew us now because in 1960 we had stayed there a long time, right? So they knew who I was. So one of the Pune group says, Baba, on this volunteer list, there is this name, Merwan Dubash. So Baba said, yes. So Baba said, yes. So he said, Baba, he's only a small child. So Baba says, yes, I know. And that was the end of it. So here I am, I'm now a volunteer. In the first day, some of you were there, right? In the 62 Savas. On the first day, they put Baba in the middle of the platform. So for darshan, people had to get up the platform from the side steps to get onto the platform. And getting up the steps was a huge rush, as you can imagine, because there was no control lines or anything that was wide open. So there was this control line that came up to the stairs, and there's a huge mass of men pushing and shoving, trying to get on board. And I was in that mob as a volunteer, holding hands with others, controlling it. And the next day, the organizers got a little smarter, and they moved Baba's chair to the end of the dais, like this, so that the line came and people just from the bottom would just bow to him. They didn't have to come up on the dais. You see it in the movies. I think whoever did the movie got the sequence wrong, because he shows Baba on the dais, then he shows the line going from here, then he shows Baba again on the dais. I think he got the sequence wrong. So from the second day, the darshan was fine, no problem. I would stand there all by myself. You know, like we have these bamboo lines in Amatiti. I would stand at the end over there, little 15-year-old guy. When somebody would say, let them come, I would let them go and then stop them. It was pretty straightforward. In the evening, when the darshan program finished, the first day, by the way, there was rain. Shall I talk about that, or does everybody know about that? On the first day, November is not a month when you get rain in Pune, but early afternoon, the darshan program was at 2. Early afternoon, these big rain clouds started rolling up, and an hour or so after the program started, there was a huge amount of rain, torrential rain. There was a big pandal built, but even water was leaking through the rain. So everybody was soaked to their skin. And then Baba made an announcement that the Western women should come up and the women mandli will give them their dry clothes. So the the women mandli had a good opportunity to go up with the women mandli, and they got clothes from the mandli to wear. And but everybody else was drenched, soaked. But it was so hot that by the end of the program in the evening, I was dry again. At the end of the evening, when the program ends, Eras makes an announcement that Baba says, I will sit on my chair until everybody leaves. So Eras says, please leave quickly, because Baba's been doing this since morning. Baba's health wasn't good, although in the programs he looked very nice. Like in darshan programs he always looked radiant and nice, but his health wasn't good. And he'd been doing this since the morning, because I think the Westerners came at 9 or something, quite early. So Eras says, please, I'm requesting you to leave as fast as you can so that Baba can get up and go inside and get some rest. Of course, 90% of the crowd does that. But there's a hardcore of a few hundred people who flock towards his dais. They want to stand there and with joined hands and just stand in front of him. And we were expecting this, so the volunteers had formed a sort of a cordon about 20, 30 feet in front of the dais to restrict these people. But that wasn't all. You had to get them out, because Baba was still sitting there. Baba was not going anywhere. So we're begging with them, we're pleading with them, please go, with joined hands. And they're still there. It was a hell of a task to get them out. Now, while we're doing this on the first day, somebody taps me on the shoulder and I look around and he says, Irach is calling you on the stage. So I look at Irach and he says, come. So I go there and he says, Baba wants to meet you. Because I hadn't seen Baba, right? I had come in the afternoon straight into the darshan program. I hadn't had a chance to meet him. So he says, Baba wants to meet you. So I jump up on the stage. So Baba says, take my darshan. I bow down, take his darshan, and then he asks me, usual stuff, how are you? Have your health? Then after a few questions, he said, now go back to your duty. So I jump off and join the cordon again. But trying to get those 200 or 300 people out of there was a task. And finally, when there were about a handful of people left, Baba got up and went inside. And this continued for all the 4 days, unfortunately. He just couldn't get these people out fast enough for Baba to get up and go in. The announcement was also made on the first day of the program that Baba says that because there's such a huge crowd here, you must only take darshan once. Because Indians have a habit of going again and again and again. Only once. So I'd heard that. So the day before, and every group had a day that in the afternoon at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, the Karachi group would go, Pune group would go, this group would go, that group would go for darshan. So they had some sort of idea of when they would be going in the line for Baba's darshan. So the day before the Karachi group's darshan was there, my mother, Roda, reminds me, said, don't forget, tomorrow when you're doing your duty, you have to hand it over to someone and come for Baba's darshan. I said, no, I'm not coming. She says, why? I said, Baba said, you only got to take darshan once. I took it on the first day when he called me up to the stage. I've had his darshan, I'm not coming. They said, no, but Baba called you, this is your darshan you got. I wasn't going to budge. I said, no, Baba said once, I'm not coming. So finally my dad says, okay, we'll check with Irach. I said, fine. So they asked Irach when they got an opportunity, because even Irach was very busy in those days, right? So, but they were there, we were there in the morning, so we got a chance to ask Irach. So Irach immediately said, no, Baba can call you as many times as he wants. That one darshan is your right that Baba has given, so you must take it. And then it made perfect sense to me. So I said, okay, I'll come. Now, I have to return to Karachi right away after the program's over. And I go back next day, I'm in Karachi. Mom comes back in a couple of days to be with me. Dad was still in Bombay for a little while longer. I get to Karachi and I start getting this very high fever. First, the doctors couldn't diagnose what it was. It was so high I couldn't study or anything. I'm supposed to be studying. So mom gets a little concerned and she cables Baba because the exams were imminent. We could cable Baba in those days. So we get a response from Baba that give Merwan good care, and he copied the cable into Adi and says Adi should go to Karachi as soon as possible to help Roda with Merwan's care. So dad dropped whatever he was doing in Bombay and came back immediately. But for a few days, a week, the doctors couldn't figure out what happened, what was going on. After about 10 days of this high fever, the doctor says, oh, he's got a severe case of measles. But the temperatures were so high, 104 like that he said no reading, no studying. In those days, that was the treatment. No, just stay in bed. So I couldn't study, I couldn't do anything. So we sent another cable to Baba that this is what the doctors say. So we get a cable back from Baba, which says, whatever happens, and I'm quoting, whatever happens, don't worry. Be resigned to my will. Tell Merwan not to worry if he cannot appear for his examination now. And there was some more. So on receiving this cable, mom and dad thought that that's it. Merwan's exams are gone. He's going to miss them. Now also while all this was going on, the news spread in the Parsi community that, you know, this Merwan Dubash is ill, he's not going to be able to take his final school leavings exams. As it is, the community was anti-Baba in those days, so you can just imagine the fuel that this added to the fire. Those silly parents, look at what they're doing to this poor child, this, that. The exams start. Now, the way those exams worked in those days were you had to pass 6 subjects, and I was taking 8, so I had the leeway of missing 2 and still being able to pass. One paper comes and goes, one of my strong subjects, I miss it totally. I miss a language oral exam, I miss a chemistry physical lab exam. And then one day my mother Rhoda calls the doctor and she's talking to him, and the doctor says, you know, Mr. Dubash, Merwan can take his exams now because his he is no longer infectious. His infectious period has finished. So mom says, what? He says, yes, he can take the exams now. So immediately they put the phone down and they say, come on, sit down, we want to tell you something. But she says, sit down properly. And after we tell you this, take some time to think about what you want to do. I said, come on, tell me what you want. I'm getting impatient, right? So they say, well, the doctor said you can sit for your exams. I said, really? They said, yes. But they said, remember, you haven't studied since you went to Baba's Darshan program. So you haven't studied for the last 2 weeks and you're not prepared for it. So think hard and carefully before you make a decision. So I did think hard and carefully for about 2 seconds. And I said, I'll do it. They said, you sure? I said, sure. So I sat the exams. I sat the exams. Of course, during the exams, all my friends who would come and compare answers and stuff like that, nobody came even within stone's throw of me. They all thought I was probably still infectious. In fact, we had complaints go to the school principal saying, how is this from our Parsi community students, their parents saying, how is this Merwan Dubash being allowed to take exams? He'll infect the other students and this and that. So the school principal was an Englishman in those days because this was a Church of England school. So he said, just get a letter from the doctor. And then he said, I'll take care of it. And he did. Exams finished. The results would come 3 months later in those days because the papers would go to the UK to get marked and then come back. And to everybody's surprise, including mine, not only did I pass, but I passed first class. Never in my life have I been a first class student. In school, in university, in my professional exams, never. I passed first class. So of course we cabled Baba immediately, and Baba said he was very happy. Then, of course, the Parsi community, they were absolutely struck dumb by this. So, meanwhile, while all this is going on, we get a cable from Baba which says, among other things, "How is dear Merwan? Did he sit for his examination?" So, of course, we cabled him, and he was very happy to hear that I passed and everything else. Then the next year, we were going to Guru Prasad again in 1963, as I mentioned earlier, for another 6-week period. So we get there. First day, we put our foot in the door, take Baba's darshan and everything. You know, Baba asks the usual questions: how are you? Good breakfast, good sleep. We sit down, and then Baba turns to my mother, Roda, and says, "Tell everybody in the room what happened about Merwan's exams." So Mum relates the story. And then after Mum relates the story, at the end, Baba says, "Merwan did my work very well among the Parsi community." You see? Sometimes you don't know what he's doing with you. So that was 1960. Tomorrow we'll start with 63. That's good. Okay? Jai Baba, everybody.